Thank you all so much for being here tonight. It is tough always for me to come and speak about my book, When Broken Glass Floats. But I'm so honored that I'm invited to speak here tonight. Just 2 days ago, I think it was 2 days ago, is Cambodian New Year here at PSU. So for the Cambodians here, it's Susdayឆ្នាំថ្មី and for those of you who are not Cambodians, and also Happy New Year to you. So maybe we'd like to I'll teach you, for those of you who are not Cambodians, maybe you can learn how to say Happy New Year in Cambodian. Susday. Okay, one more time. Susday. Great. ឆ្នាំថ្មី Okay, now we put it together. I'll give you a pop quiz later. Okay, សួស្តីឆ្នាំថ្មី That's great. That's great. Yeah, I'll give you A+. In a favorable book review of my memoir, When Broken Glass Floats, Justin Wintle of the London Sunday Times remarks, in the 20th century madhouse, nowhere was madder than Cambodia. The regime instituted by Pol Pot after the fall of Phnom Penh to the Khmer Rouge in April 1975 ranks as one of the most callous ever. It is estimated that between a fifth and a third of the population die in gruesome circumstances in 3 years. But before this madhouse began, Cambodia was relatively a peaceful country. For the first 4 years of my life, I knew normalcy. My father worked for the Cambodian government. We live in a comfortable home, on a 2-story stucco home. And my mom was a homemaker. My father just was the breadwinner, so to help all of us, we just went to school. I mean, my siblings and I went to public school. My mom, I used to just wake up to the hot meal in the morning, the rice porridge and with marinated beef or marinated fish. And during the weekdays we go to school, and during weekends, my mom would teach us how to cook. We all would get involved in cooking. And I like to always tell the story of my mom get us to help. And I remember at that age, I was 4. My sister would help with vegetables or with grated coconuts. And I was at 4. I remember I always loved to sit in front of my older sister, Chia, in front of her as she was grating the coconut. And I was helping. I would just help myself, eating the coconut. And one of my favorite games was during that time was with my older sister, play hide and seek. And I remember it's at that age you always, and 4, you always find the same place to hide. So of course my older sister Gia, she's the only person who would play with me, play hide and seek. And one time I remember my dad, knew that I'm going to be found again by my sister. So he was sitting on the couch and reading the newspaper, and he said, "Money, come here." He hid me behind the newspaper. And of course my sister couldn't find me where she I usually hide. And so he and my mom conspired. So of course when my sister asked, where's Ati? And my mom, I would hear my mom's voice, I didn't hear my sister's. And suddenly I would hear my sister's voice, footsteps coming toward me. And of course I got discovered, And that was the kind of normalcy I knew. And then one night my mom got so excited. She came and got all of us to go to the balcony on the second floor, and she said, "Come, Mom, I want to show you this comet, this bright comet. And we went to the right, we couldn't see it. And then went to, she was laughing because she thought she could see on the right of the house. And then we went to the left, and I remember, I was short, so all my siblings, blocked me from seeing my mom show us, the comet. And she was excited, and all we saw this comet, and suddenly her excitement died down, and she told us an old superstition, old folks superstition that when the comet points to a particular place, Cambodia will be drawn into war with that country. And I remember at that age, I didn't understand the word war and country, and I remember asking my mom, what's war? What is war? And the answer to that question was answered on one night in 1969. One night, I just woke up to all this loud gunfire. I remember my old sister Chia calling for my father, my parents. Ma pa, you gong cho sok khmer, you gong cho sok khmer. The Viet Cong are invading Cambodia. I remember running to the living room, frantically looking for my parents, and I was so scared, that I would lose my father. And after the second night of the fighting in 1969, my family left the Cambodian, the province, the Tak province, which is border the Vietnam, Saigon, South Vietnam. So we left Tak province to go to Phnom Penh, and as many of you know, that during time was the Vietnam War, and some people call the American War, raged into Cambodia in 1969, and so 2 months later, we found out that our home was bombed, was destroyed, and at that time, I remember asking I thought my dad could fix it. I asked my dad if he could fix the house, and he told me he couldn't fix it. And with our home, my family went to stay at an uncle's home near Basat River, and there one night, suddenly this gigantic sound shook the house, and I remember, frantically trying to get out of my bed, through the mosquito netting, and I remember running to the window, and I saw my family just blocked the windows, and I remember fighting to get through, and I remember seeing all this the planes dropping bombs, and you can see the gigantic tongues of fire lick the dark sky and smoke, and the landscape just all lit up. And I remember my father and me just stand there just by ourselves, and just watching, and I remember feeling my father's silent cries through holding his hand. In 1970, in an attempt to incapacitate the Viet Cong troops operating in the border sanctuary of Cambodia, the U.S., the forces from the United States and the South Vietnam launched a massive drive into Cambodia. In the New York Times on July 18, 1973, Seymour Hersh wrote in an article, United States B-52 bombers made at least 3,500 secret bombing raids over Cambodia in a 14-month period beginning in March 1969. Defense Department sources disclosed today. Military sources did confirm, however, that information about the Cambodian raids was directly provided to President Nixon and to his top national advisors, including Henry Kissinger. From 1969 to 1973, the U.S. dropped more than 500,000 tons of bombs on Cambodia, more than 3 times the amount dropped on Japan during World War II. A conservative estimate indicated that approximately 150,000 Cambodians, civilians, perished under U.S. bombardment. The morning after the bombardment, I remember at that age I was curious. I went to the river bank where where I saw the bombing the night before. I remember seeing the boat, these small motorboats coming from that family were fleeing from those villages. And once my parents saw that people were fleeing, and they yearned so much for normalcy, and they decided to leave Takai province, and they reconsidered rebuilding. So they bought a home in Phnom Penh, the capital city of Cambodia. And when we went there, and we found relative normalcy, but it was short-lived. The Khmer Rouge exploited the upheaval of the Vietnam War so they deceived villagers, where the villagers whose homes were bombed. So in 1973, CIA report states, and I quote, "The Khmer Rouge are using damage caused by B-52 strikes as the main theme for their propaganda. In the words of a Khmer Rouge leader, every time after they have been bombed, they would take the peasants to see the craters, to see how big and deep the craters were, to see how the earth had been gouged and scorched. Terrified and half crazy, the peasants were ready to believe what they were told." On April 12, 1975, Brian Barron from the BBC reporting from Phnom Penh, and I quote, "Each dawn could be the last day for the Phnom Penh regime, and this is the last day the Americans are abandoning their Cambodian allies. The Mekong Bank is in the Khmer Rouge hand, right up to the city's outskirts. 3/4 of the American embassy staff have already left." So on April 17, 1975, 32 years ago today, the Khmer Rouge took over Cambodia, and I was 9. Then the 20th century madhouse began, and I was in it, and many Cambodians as well. The Khmer Rouge forced to evacuate about 2 million people out of Phnom Penh, and some were told that the Americans were bombed. Some were told that they were supposed to leave only about 3 kilometers from Phnom Penh. And I remember, in the freeway, just animals, kids were crying, and you could not even walk. And you could walk very slowly, like the cars and bikes, everything had to be walked. You cannot drive, and when you look on the freeway, you can, as fast as I can see, you just see a lot of people. And the Khmer Rouge soldiers were watching us as if they evacuate us out of Phnom Penh. And I remember on the freeway, my dad was afraid to look out, to the freeway because of they blindfolded the Lone soldiers, and they tied their bags, and they loaded up to semi trucks. And soon later, when we got to my grandparents' home in this village, I remember my being in an interrogation setting, which I didn't know that it was. I remember I was sick, and I remember staying in that little bed outside my grandfather's house. And I remember that a few Khmer Rouge came and interrogated my father and my grandfather. And what they wanted to do was to interview my father, what he did for professionally previously, and what my uncles did previously. And my father, being an ideal person, he thought that the government would not just take the country; the government would fight to the country and save the people. And so basically, he told them honestly what he did professionally, except one thing. When they asked about my Uncle Singh, who left Cambodia 2 days before the fall of Cambodia, he told them that Uncle Singh got lost That's why he was not with us. But Uncle Seng was in the Cambodian Air Force, and they deceived those villagers. They said that my uncle was one of those people who bombed them. So, and soon after that, I didn't even get to say goodbye. I mean, I came back one time, from fishing just to help provide for the families, and the role kind of reversed because we didn't have any markets at all. And I came back from fishing. I wanted to eat with my father because I was the daddy's angel and always look after him. And when I came back to my grandfather's home, and my dad and my uncles were gone, I remember asking my mom, "Where is Pa?" And my mom said, "He's gone. They took him, in an ox cart." I remember holding a bowl of rice, chewing food, and I just was devastated. I remember running, from the upstairs on the ladders from the stair to my grandfather's orchard. I remember just beating on the banana tree and calling my dad to come back to me. And I was so angry, I was so hurt. And it was a big blow for me. I couldn't understand why they took my father away. And soon after that, the Khmer Rouge eliminated the culture. Angkala means high organization. Angkala became your mom, your mother, your father, and your God. They ordered children to destroy Buddhist temples and spiritual shrines. My older brother, Tan, was one of the children who was told to destroy the spiritual shrines and Buddhist temple. I remember he came back and told my mom how bad he felt, and why did they make him destroy all these shrines and the temple. And during that time, for women, and for girls and for women, you're not supposed to have long hair. And I remember in that village where my grandparents were, my mom told me that they put the coconut shell on top of your head, and you're supposed to cut your hair along the rim of the coconut. And I was just so shocked. And why would they, have this power over us? Personal pronouns and title respect were replaced by the all-purpose term, comrade. And during that time, I couldn't call my mom Ma or my father. And so I have to address my mom Ma in secret. And we were allowed to call another term, which is Mai and our comrade. And the people who came from, excuse me. The people like my family and other people from the cities, we were treated inferiorly. There was, they segregate classes, like the people who were the peasants, they were, what they call old people. And for us, we call the new people. We were inferior to the old people. Soon a life hard lesson began. The Khmer Rouge abolished family intimacy. And even when you were sent to work in irrigation canal, you cannot talk between your siblings. My older sister, Ra and Chantara and Chanari, they were talking, just like normal siblings. They were talking, and they forbid. The brigade leader said, "No, you're not supposed to talk." And that brigade leader was going to get my older sister in trouble. But the older sister, Jia, and she always was also very strong in the family. I mean, in terms of speaking up, and she talked to the brigade leader. She said, "No, they cannot be enemies," because when Chanari and Chantara were talking, the brigade leader said, "You're enemies because we told you not to talk, and you talk, so you're enemies of the organization." So but Jia said, "We're not the only siblings. They can, they supposed to talk." But because of what my sister said, Jia said that the brigade leader keep her eye on my older sister, that consider her as an enemy. Soon I was, they segregated class, different classes, and then they separated children, from their families, and or my older sister was sent to an older brigade, and for me, I was about 10. So I was sent to a forced labor camp. Children ages about 7 and up were sent to forced labor camp to build irrigation, to build the Khmer Rouge revolution. So I was taken from my mom, and so just children were sent to. I was sent first to Phnom Kambao, and I remember the children were crying. They missed their parents, and the informants would yell at them, and even the most mean, the meanest informant that screamed at his children, they could not drown the cry, the sadness that the children had because they missed their parents so much. And even, as I was working in this labor camp, even I became, weeks into days, I became thinner and thinner because I was not given enough food to eat. And even as, my arm was just like a ruler, it looks like a ruler, it was that skinny. And even then, I was a walking skeleton. The Khmer Rouge still transferred me to other forced labor camps. During that time, the meaning of starvation. Like here, you probably hear people say, when before noon or before 11, you did your homework the night before and you're hungry and you say, I got to go buy something to eat. I'm starving to, you hear that. You hear my friends say, American friends say, that they're starving. They should get, starving during the Khmer Rouge time. It means that every waking hour, you think about food, what you can't find to eat. For me, it was like, what can I eat? Crickets, toads, anything that was edible, edible leaves. So every waking hour, I think about food. And soon, because of this food ration, they would not give enough food for us to eat. My younger sister, Avi, and my younger brother, Avin, died from starvation and from edema, and also from the diarrhea, just simple disease, illnesses like that. And now more brutal reality hit me the most when my mom, she could work for the Khmer Rouge. She was useful to them. But as soon as she could not work, they forced her to go to what they call hospital. But their hospital, there's no medicine. There's this herbal thing that they give you, they call rabbit dungs. But then you just chew, but it doesn't have a cure for all kinds of illnesses. And my mom didn't want to go. They said, "You don't go, we'll make people we'll get people to take you to go." And they did force my mom to go. And the last time I saw my mom was in this barn, what they call hospital, and patients, sleep on the ground, and the cots and all this, flies, because they couldn't help themselves, and they all have edema. My mom all had edema. I couldn't recognize her. I remember walking down the aisle with my younger brother, Map, and my brother kept saying, "T, Nama." He kept crying. I tried to fight tears because I couldn't find my mom. And finally, a girl told me that that's your mom. And I look at this woman. She all swelled up. Her eye all swelled up, and and flies. And I remember holding everything back. This is my mom, the beautiful lady that I saw before. This is my mom, and this is they call hospital. And I remember my mom calling my brother, "Kon pro, Madai," my son, my daughter. I remember her begging me, to stay there, to come and take care of her because they didn't give her water for 4 days. And I promised her, she made me promise her to come back and take care of her. She said, "Ask your sister, or ask the corporate leader to let you come back to take care of me, just to bring me water." And I said, "I promise." But when I went to my sister went to ask the corporate leader what he said. He said, if my mom get well, then I can, I will be fine. But if my mom die, I will be punished. And so I never get, and I remember asking Chia, "What do I do now for Ma?" She said, "Well, I'll tell Ma when I get to see her that you didn't forget." So one day when I was going to this mandatory meeting, where they forced everybody from children to go to the meeting, and this one girl who told me who my mom was ran after me through, and she kept calling me older sister, and she was out of breath. And she said, your mom, they throw your mom in a well. And I just thought, what did they do to my mom? And she said, they threw your mom in a well, and your mom was still alive. And I remember before that, I just asked myself, when they took me away to forced labor camp, I cried so much. I said, how much will I cry when my mom died? And I remember during this time, I was starving to death. I didn't eat. I was depressed. And they sent me to another forced labor camp. And I didn't remember how I got there. I remember just lying in this small makeshift shack. And I just look at the particle, the sun shines through the shack, and I remember just stare at that. I was not even afraid of the Khmer Brigade leader, and I totally shut off to protect me, And then, to a point, my older sister came. My sister Ra came, and just before I started to realize that my father died, my sibling died, my mom just died. I cannot give up. I haven't done anything important in my life. I cannot die yet, even though I didn't know that there's any hope at all that everything will be better. I said I cannot die, and then my older sister Ra came to my hut, and she snuck out and she brought rice crust to give it to me, and I couldn't even talk to her loud because we were afraid that we were going to get caught. So, as I was eating this rice crust, I started to, question God, all this, why am I, going through this? Why all these Cambodians going through this? And at that age, I think I was about 10 or 11. And growing up, I remember my mom told me that I was some nun or somebody told me that I was the daughter of God. And at that point, I started to question God. I said, God, if I'm a daughter of God, why does God let me suffer? And I tried to compare to my earthly father, my father who, when my older sister, Gia, went to study English, and he paid for, private school for her and, hardback books and expensive books. And one time I remember asking my dad, because I was lag behind my math class and I want to learn math, and I want my dad to pay for me. I want to go to private school. And my dad was just having breakfast with my mom, and he just didn't respond. I was ready with a notebook and a pencil, to go to my summer class, and he didn't say anything, and I cried. I said, how come you only pay, how come I'm not important? You pay for Gia, you pay all the expensive, how come you don't want to pay for me? And so my dad was just so surprised when I started to cry that she said, you're only small and you want to study so much. Okay, go to school, Pa pay. So here, at that age 11, when I was going through like this, I was saying, here, my earthly father understood, and me, how if I'm the daughter of God, then God should understand. God should stop my suffering and should stop the suffering of those Cambodians. And as I start to, have this this burning desire in me, and I want to live, and I said, not just, I realize this, my self-worth, that I need to live for my parents. It's that someday, perhaps some days, I can do something important, to repay my parents, because we were taught in Cambodian culture that our parents, that we owe a big favor to our parents before the gift of life. So, here I, would sneak out, crossing the swelling river to ask for food, and even, snuck out in front of the Khmer Rouge to ask for food. And then another brutal reality hit me. It was my sister Gia, who would die from a prolonged fever. And this is the lady the sister whom I idolized. When I was forced to witness with other children, children were made to stand in front, and adults were behind us. And they tied two alleged lovers at the poles, and the woman was pregnant, and they said that these two people love each other without Angkar's sanction, without Angkar's approval. They are Angkar's enemies. They have to be eradicated. They have to be destroyed. And I remember watching the killing of the man first, and I remember praying that they would spare the woman because she's pregnant, and they didn't spare, and I was so devastated. When I went to get water with my older sister Chia, and I remember asking her, growing up, I learned about, goods always win over evil, and I asked Chia, I said, Chia, if the Khmer Rouge were bad, why did the Khmer Rouge win? And my sister, to make me understand what's going on, she told me a Cambodian proverb. She said, on Sray, like young sister now, broken glass floats, but it will not float long. Soon a squash cloak will float and the good will prevail. So all that time, that seed of survival was planted in me, and even after Chia died, I couldn't save her. I cling on to that hope. And Chia died just 3 months before the Vietnamese invaded in Cambodia in 1979. Yet through the terror, my family members remained loyal to one another, despite the Khmer Rouge demands of loyalty only to itself. We inexpressibly risk our life to smuggle foods and to bring to our mom or our siblings. Even now, I still endure pain and nightmares every time I speak about this time. But yet, I have learned, to forgive the Khmer Rouge soon after my book came, in 2000. But in spite of what the Khmer Rouge did to my family and to me, they could not take away the better part from me. And I am, as optimistic and loving and caring person, and also spunky, as some of you will find out. And it is my mission to empower others in the world. And I have hope that others will help me and cheer me on in my journey. So I just wanted to close one thing that, and I can take questions. I want to acknowledge this. I always do every time I speak here in this country and abroad, and that, because of my friend Jane, who was 10, who helped me escape the death camp. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't be studying here because I was so sick, and she helped me escape, but she didn't make it. She died, so I dedicate this book also to Jane. So I'll take any questions you guys might have. Yes.
Hi, Shannon. I'm Stephen Phoenix, and I met you when I covered your appearance in Candy several years ago with your young.
You look familiar, Steve.
I just was so impressed with you and your talk, and you were really vibrant and telling jokes and really inspiring. And certainly the story that you tell is inspiring now, but I have to say you seem very, very sad today. Is this anniversary particularly hard for you?
Yes. It seems like spiritually or something that I feel that even sometimes I don't even know that's like a few years back I didn't even know that it was the anniversary. Somehow my soul seemed to know that's that the day. And honestly, prepare for each lecture. It's so hard for me, and because I go through trauma all the time. And so I also work as an interpreter, and I just said I don't want to do anything else. I just tried to finish my screenplay, which I adapted from my book. I just sent it to revise it one more time, and it just come back about this time. It just come back, and I think my soul or something about me sensing spirits or something, just very, very sad. And I just like always, I always pray for that strength. And I feel, sometimes when I speak, especially on the anniversary. I spoke once at Mississippi State, just I think the day before the anniversary, and I remember I was so exhausted because I spoke elsewhere, and I remember just as if a lot of spirits around me helped me, because considering my energy, I could not have spoken. My voice so soft, and so yes, it's about that time. It's yes, and everything come back. It's like naturally come back. Yes.
There's some, I guess, controversy over the money that's going to fund the tribunals, the trials, that, you know, to prosecute
Uh-huh.
former Khmer Rouge.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, I've heard that some of the money that can go toward that might also be better used to actually rebuild Cambodia's justice system. How do you feel about how the money is being spent? And I think it's something close to $50 million to prosecute the former Khmer Rouge.
I know that they asked for the proposed amount, it was 56 million, and the last time I was there in Cambodia, but they got 39 million, so I'm not sure. But your question is that, how do I feel if the money is used to rebuilding Cambodia? That is fine, you know, because, I mean, I went back to Cambodia 25 years after, you know, I left the country, and I definitely, if, you know, but I mean, it's as important for me, you know, to rebuild Cambodia, and I want to see justice, but also, you know, building the country is also one of the important factors to help us heal, because, you know, when I went back in 2005, I mean, some of the roads, it was so bad, and some of the road, and when even the villages where I went, you know, where my relatives died, they were so poor. They were so poor, and I didn't know how I ever survived. I went back to where, you know, my mom died and stuff, and it was really, really, really hard. But yeah, definitely, I mean, to use that money to rebuild Cambodia, definitely, yeah. And I heard that they use a third of the money raised, right? Do you know? Have you read, really?
No, I know it was proposed to be something in the 50 million, but I hadn't heard that it came down.
Yeah, they said that there is a disagreement. I haven't kept up with the news because it's kind of depressing, because that the disagreement between the Cambodian lawyers and the international lawyers of how things should be done. And so I read, I'm not sure, a few weeks ago that already a third of the money has been spent. So, yes.
My name is Ricky. I'm with the Cambodian American community here in Portland. And I do thank you for giving this talk.
You're welcome.
I think, for the most part, I've always had a falling out with my father because we just didn't speak the same language. And I've had a lifelong quest to really try to understand my father and who he was. And I thank you for his stories, because I've never really heard the story in English. And
Mhm.
my comprehension of the Cambodian language is pretty small in terms of the vocabulary and whatnot. I think my question is, how do I help my father find closure? You know, the things that you go through, and, you know, I'm sure you're going through, you know, like all the work you do to
Yeah.
PTSD, whatever effects that you might have.
It's,
I would like to have a better relationship and have him be more involved in
mhm.
understanding what he's going through. And
I think you know, for me, because I have worked for child psychiatry at the medical school, doing studies on post-traumatic stress disorder for Dr. Zach, and it is hard. And for you to have your father would be maybe find someone else who he's comfortable to talk with whom he's comfortable to talk. Like for me, I mean, my older sister, you know, I love all my siblings, and it was tough for her to speak about this time. And I remember while I was writing the book, she didn't want to talk about it. She said, I don't want to talk about it. And she was very angry at the Cambodians. I just like keep it in, you know. I said, why? You know, well, I understood, because there's a lot of pain and a lot of anger. And so now that the book came out, I started to talk more, open more. She started to open more. And then other Cambodians who were not as open as before. And the book came out, and I started to open to them because they feel more comfortable. I mean, other people, you know, are more comfortable talk. Like I wouldn't necessarily comfortable talking to you, but then I would be comfortable talking to a lady next to you. And then because, you know, you're father and son, you know, because before my sister didn't want to, but then she started to open up a little bit. So I think my suggestion also that if you can, you know, if you can, I would suggest a counselor or somebody. Just, you know, for me, it's just somebody to talk to. I mean, I know what I'm going through. I mean, people, I know people are worried about the stigma, and I mean, when we conduct our study, I mean, Cambodians didn't want to be, when I call, they say, well, I don't want to because they call the psychiatrist a crazy medicine, crazy. And I said, well, I'm not crazy. I'm one of the subjects, and my cousin, I say, Sam's he's one of the subjects. But because the translation from Cambodian for psychiatry is a crazy field of medicine or something like that, and Cambodians were afraid to go there. But then I I established the rapport with the Cambodian, and it's easier for them when it's okay. And we all. In this world, we want to be loved. We don't want people to, stigmatize us. And I usually don't care. I say, yeah, if you think I'm crazy, go ahead, but I'm not. And even when at school at University of Oregon, when I had nightmares and didn't do too well when I played tennis, and then they heard that I went through the Khmer time, and they said, well, you should talk to a psychiatrist. So I went to talk to a psychiatrist at my school, and then I went back to my chemistry class. And my classmate asked me, where were you yesterday? I said, well, I saw a psychiatrist. And two of them go, what happened? And I say, oh, just, to make sure he did his job. But, it's, find someone, a counselor, somebody you can talk to about, because I know I suffer from PTSD. And because of what I have endure preparing, and after I talk tonight, I can have nightmares tonight and I cannot sleep. And so find someone, a counselor, somebody he can talk to and whom he can talk to. And so later on, I think that relationship between you and your father will be better. And I think my sister started to open up me now, my older sister. And I thank God that I don't want the Khmer's lose another sister because of the way they kill my my parents and my siblings, and here I lose them because of they still have pain. So.
Do you think the tribunal will help?
Oh yes, for me, yes. For me, I think for a lot of Cambodians, yeah, it will bring some closure for all of us. I think not just for the Cambodian, I think for anybody who suffer from war trauma to see that. I was talking to, let me know if I run out of time. Okay, and because she observed with Milosevic, was it, at The Hague. When I saw Milosevic was put on trial, to me as a Cambodian survivor, and I just said, thank God, even though he has nothing to do with me, but that he represents, an evil force. And I wish that Cambodians, the Khmer leaders would, we try at the Hague. So and I think to see the Cambodians, the Khmer leader try, I think will bring some closure for all of us. But for me, the most important thing for me to bring closure was to write the book and talk about it because it empowered me, and it also empowered people whom I spoke to, and because it also opened up that pain, release that pain that you have inside you and your dad, because I think a lot of my relatives don't talk about it, it's still there, and not everybody is willing to talk about it, as I found out in our studies, because it's very painful. And because I suffer through nightmares during the writing, and I have to make up during the day to sleep, and I write when I couldn't sleep. I write at night, 2 in the morning, whatever. So yeah. I mean, at some point, I hope your father will find a way. And I think by finding somebody, whom he can talk to, that will help. And so I'm sure that relationship will so long both of you working together, and you try to find somebody to help him. Okay, Long.
I want to answer your question. On the 28th, we're going to have a forum to talk about specifically for the tribunal. It's going to take place right here. I went to Cambodia on February and I met with the person from the U.S. who's in charge of the tribunal. It is over $50 million that they have raised, and a representative from the prosecutor's office will be here to answer those kind of questions. We'll have panel, Rick, you can have a stacked panel of psychiatrists, criminal lawyers from all over the country, as well as from Cambodia. So,
Thanks.
if I may offer another advice for Rick, you can't really hold people like that. What you can do, you can ask questions like, what happened? coming out of it. The only way to do this is to accept it and trying to tell our story like Senator Pete's been doing. Every time we do this, we shed a little bit of it away. So instead of trying to help them, just ask them what happened. Tell me, I want to know, I want to know.
Thanks for adding that, Kilo. Yes.
Just a comment. I don't, it seems callous to me to question how much money, whatever it takes to prosecute and to bring it to closure, it seems like it's money well spent, in terms of the prosecution of those who are still living, who can be tried. I mean, I can't imagine. Do we have, money for a Nuremberg? I don't know. I mean, it seems like whatever money it takes is money well spent.
So, I don't understand your question.
No, it's just a comment.
Oh, comment, okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's a lot of money. I mean, to me, it's whatever it takes to get these leaders who are responsible for this genocide. I mean, to me, it's money. It's 56 million is a lot, but it's not. It's important. I think for all the survivors worldwide. And so yeah, I hope that the tribunal will go on and that the UN will make sure that it will go on and it will be successful, hopefully. But
I just have a comment.
okay.
Especially for you. I got most of my family out in Vietnam in 1991, which is 16 years after the fall of Saigon.
Uh-huh.
And they all had different experiences when they came, one of which is none of them would reveal what happened to them. They don't want to talk about it. 16 years is a long time.
Mhm.
Lots of things that happened. And it's only now, so it's 2007. And my father was one of the men who we brought over in 91. He's 80 now. He's been through a lot in his lifetime, starting with the French occupation of Vietnam,
Mhm.
communists, and, et cetera, et cetera. And now I figure out how to get him to talk. I know this is terrible, but first you have to use a lot of humor. Then we figure out, Dad, have a little wine. So, so he'll drink it, we get him to drink a little bit of
Yes.
glass of wine. But you don't start out with what happened. You want to start out with good stories. There is always a time in the past where everything was good, even for a little bit, and we focus on that, and we
Mhm.
laugh about it. And
Yes.
as he relaxed after a glass of wine, then he starts to share, and when he stopped, I don't bother. And it's done, over a period of time. So now, and it's the same with my siblings, we
Mhm.
started to talk about all the things that they had gone through, and I could tell there was a lot more.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
you have to buy your time,
Yeah.
because it is, they have to process. all
Yeah,
that.
each of us has different, I mean, each of us, we have a time for each of us, I mean, to open up, I mean, even for me, I mean, my former neighbor, Jacob, he passed away in 2000, and he fought in World War II. And, some of the things he did, he hardly opened, but we joke about it. I mean, I said, he read my book, and he said, we can do what you go through. He was going through cancer too because of what the shrapnel was buried in his, I think, part of his body. But he didn't open much, but he started to open more, and because after reading a chapter or two in my book, and he said, what they used to make me do, I didn't take a shower when I was in South Pacific. I didn't take a shower for a month, and and my beard was like this, and they make us skin rabbits. He was in like the Carlson outfit, like the Navy SEAL outfit, and he was one of the elite, and he said, yeah, they make us skin rabbit. They look so sad. He started talking about his stuff, and I go, Jacob, that's all they made you do? Oh, that's nothing, and because I didn't want to be so sad, I just switched the subject, and then he started to open up more, because I think normally he wouldn't open up to his sons or his wife, and he started to open up more to me because he would call me to come. Yeah, T will come and shoot the breeze with me, and he said to open up to me what he happened up after he came back from South Pacific. So yeah, how it helps to start with some joke and tease and stuff like that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was curious, you said that for the tribunal is successful. What is the criteria for being successful? Because I was raised by my great-grandmother, and she was rescued from Auschwitz in 1945.
Uh-huh.
And 63 years later, she's 108 now.
Uh-huh.
And she says that Nuremberg did nothing to come to any conclusion. It was a meaningless event. That was just, it was, for her, it was just a waste of time in politics. So I'm just curious, I mean, what is in terms of the best possible notion of worst possible, what is the success, or tribunal, what is the success? What is success?
Well, that is a tough question. I mean, for me, just mostly to bring out this, there are enough documents to prosecute these people. I spoke to a lawyer in the capital city, and Phnom Penh, and he said there's more, they can expand more to prosecute more leaders, but they didn't want to. And he said, he didn't want to reveal. He said, I say more, I cannot return to Cambodia. But he's not that optimistic, but it's just my wish. Success was pretty broad. I mean, it's, for me, just to have the UN, set up a tribunal in Cambodia, I'm grateful, but, I wish that it could be done, completed sooner, because the leaders are dying. I think the last one was Tamok, the number, whatever, the one who was almost killed my grandparents, grandfathers. But it's not an easy question to ask. But I just wish that all those who are responsible, it's the main ones, they call the main ones, and that they will have be prosecuted and put and punished for whatever they deserve. For responsible for all these more than 1.7 million people. So, but for me, I find a sense of personal justice through writing my book, through speaking, because, and that's, I think, for all other survivors too, to speak up, but it's not going to be easy. But, go ahead, Steve.
I realize this is a very large question, but have you come to any conclusions, or have you thought and come up with notions of why this happened, how people could behave the way they did toward you and your family and countrymen? And the reason I ask is not to open old wounds, but to try to figure out if there's something practical we can do to prevent this kind of thing from happening. There are things going on in Darfur,
Yes.
there are things going on in Bosnia and so forth. This is not an isolated thing. It seems to be part of humanity. We have this problem. Do you have any sense of how to address the problem?
It's a tough question. It's, for me, looking back, the Cambodian peasants, I mean, they live a very primitive way of life. And when they were told that the government dropped bomb, and they said that they said it was the Lono government, and so they believed. And so basically the Khmer Rouge exploited them. And so I think that's why it's important for me to educate other people about what, when you are ignorant about what's going on, people easily brainwash you. When you keep informed of the situation of what's going on in the world, nobody can easily brainwash you. That's what happened in Cambodia, and and then they have the psychotic leaders. I mean, how do you change a society from, there's no, to me, I mean, from being educated in this country, I don't ever think that we will have equality anywhere on this earth. There will be some of us who are smarter, there's some who are, not as smart. So there will be, but we need to learn to respect each other for for our gifts. I mean, people, you might be great, she will be great in law and stuff, I'll be great in something else, so we need to respect that. And I think, and when you have terrible psychotic leaders to lead you and you don't question, that's the problem. And when you're ignorant and you just, and I speak openly about this, like sometimes some Cambodian elders would say, believe me. And, and we taught to respect our elders. And I said to you, now I'm educated, I said, how can I believe you? You have any facts to show it to me? Because that's what we are taught to respect our elders and no questions. And I think, and some just blindly follow. I mean, yeah, it's a big question, but I just, it's educating, get educated, and about what's going on, and keep informed, and learn to ask questions. And sometimes my elders don't always like me, especially I'm a girl. I question, they don't like it, and I say, well, I'm glad I was raised by my parents because they were open-minded, and I was, it was okay for me to question, and they were, so we like in this country, you question our leaders and like what we do and like what we do tonight, to bring awareness to this area and to other people, around the country. So I think I take a lot of time. I'm going to let Judith.